Greetings, housemates, and welcome to another episode of Learn to Play Warhammer Total War. I'm Phwop, and this is a more in-depth introduction to the Empire. So, the Empire, I thought, would be the most kind of generic faction, and the easiest one to wrap my head around. And it seems like that just because I've played so many other games. But the more I played, the longer the game went on, the more I realized I don't think I was quite right. So let's take a look at how the Empire works in general before we jump into the specifics. So faction mechanics can only capture territory belonging to vampires and other humans except Norska, so not the far north. Of course, capturing vampire territory is a pain in the butt because of the vampire corruption that they spread by necessity. So be prepared. You do have to deal with a lot of corruption all over the place, so having a couple, maybe even all of your heroes specializing in corruption reduction is kind of a big deal. Offices, lords may be assigned into offices, granting them a unique title and bonuses. We're going to look at that in more depth when we go into the game. Or once we start a campaign. And technologies branches are linked to various buildings. This is super useful. It kind of means that whatever buildings you build, you can then specialize in whatever it produces or kind of the general idea of it. If you build up the port in your main city, then it will let you research economics. Or if you have a infantry field, then infantry. So it's nice. You always have technology suitable to whatever you've built. The researches are fairly good and not terribly long, but you have no way to speed up research except through special pickups. Top units, we'll look at all the units. Playstyle, plentiful confederation options allowing other Empire factions to be merged with the Emperors via diplomacy. Just like the orcs and the dwarves, you can confederate. You do have to be very friendly with the other faction, and they often have to be small or on the brink of destruction. Balanced unit roster with a wide range of options, very true. Lots of cavalry, like the orcs, but superior ranged weapons to the orcs, excellent artillery, just all the goodness. Fractured Empire, whereby the province of the Empire ruled by elector counts over whom the Emperor has tenuous control at best. You do have to solidify control of the Empire. There are a bunch of other human factions you have to combat. Numerous enemies. This is so true and something that plays out about mid-game, and you have to prepare for. So your two legendary leaders, yes, legendary lords, I mean, are Emperor Karl Franz. He is a boss melee character. Campaign movement range plus 5% for everyone. Upkeep minus 10% for Reichsguard and Greatsword units. Campaign movement range is actually, I think, the Empire gets the best of this because the Empire is huge. It's huge, my friends. You need to travel at breakneck speeds all around the Empire, so I really value this extra movement speed. I often found myself spending a skill point on the increased campaign movement speed just because of how far my armies had to move all the time. Upkeep minus 10% for Reichsguard and Greatsword units. Reichsguard and Greatsword are sick top tier units for you, or at least powerful, solid units. Maybe they're not quite top tier compared to some of the stuff you have, but close. I would say elite army fodder for sure. And Balthazar Gelt is your other legendary lord. Battle Wizard hero capacity +1. Upkeep minus 25% for Battle Wizard heroes. Battle Wizard heroes are great. You really only need one per army, one spellcaster per army. And the way you unlock, so remember you can unlock each legendary lord in the same playthrough. The one you start with you automatically get, and the other one has some sort of requirement. The requirement to unlock Balthazar Gelt is actually to build a wizard recruiting building. It is very expensive and kind of high tier, but that means that and his personal ability is +2 levels for wizards recruited in the same province. So that combos really well, making Emperor Karl Franz probably my favorite starting choice, especially for this movement range. And then the Reichsguard and Greatsword stuff is pretty good. So let's jump on in. So the Empire, I think, more than any of the other factions, requires solid planning. At least in the construction of your armies. You want to expect to have like 4 armies, and how you spec out your troops, because you will have a lot of heroes and lords. Okay, there are things to do. All right, so let's take a look at offices. So here's how offices work. Karl is the Empire. He is the Emperor. Everyone gets an ability based on... They get a trait based on their position. His is +2 leadership for everyone in the army. So his is actually pretty small compared to the other offices. No one can take his place because he can't die. Alright, your other options are... Let's go from the bottom up. Treasurer, 25% more tradable resources, income from all buildings plus 5% everywhere. So treasurer does not matter where the treasurer is. So the important things to note about the offices are what rank you have to be to take it. Rank 1, 5, 5, 10, 10. If they have a local effect or it's global, like the treasurer, does not matter who he is, does not matter where he is, treasurer can do whatever. The other rank 1, the Castellan Engineer, has a personal upkeep reduction for artillery in his army, and a construction cost of 10% less for all buildings. Pretty good for a defendy hero. If you want to sit the construction cost is actually the big bonus, and artillery happens to be nice for defending cities, so that's pretty good. The key to understanding how this works is your first few lords, you're going to want to make them Castellan Engineers and Treasurers, but you're going to spec them out to be the higher ranks, because they'll gain ranks. They'll get to rank 10 before your newer lords. So your newer lords are always filling these lower posts, and you're upgrading your older lords to level 5 and 10. I'll note that the Reichsmarschall isn't that great of a thing. Yeah, Reichsmarschall is okay. I mean, Reichsguard units are really powerful. They're not quite the highest tier, but they're the highest affordable tier. Local recruitment capacity +1 is good. The Reichsmarschall is probably someone you want to be able to recruit like huge armies for. Like, he's going to be the dude who builds up an army and carries it to someone else, would be my thoughts. Or a fighter, as he doesn't have to particularly be anywhere to exercise his abilities. The Patriarch here, this is where you want Balthazar Gelt. Winds of Magic Power Reserve +18, so they regenerate mana faster. Hero Recruit Rank +2 for Battle Wizards. He already does that, so you're going to want him, you're going to recruit Battle Wizards wherever he is anyway. And this is going to double up on them, giving them like +4 levels from the start. You can actually start off with level 11 Wizards if Balthazar Gelt is your rank 10 Patriarch. And that might be a reason to start off with him, so you can get rank 10 sooner, still. And you can recruit more Battle Wizards. And the Battle Wizards they're really powerful in combat, and each type of Battle Wizard brings a nice little map-wide bonus in combat, but once again, they all share the same mana pool, so there's only so much. You can cast a lot of different spells if you bring multiple wizards, but you can't cast more spells. Alright, the Spy Master. So the Spy Master is awesome in that all your heroes are safer from enemy actions and have a 5% increased chance of success. That's super powerful. All heroes everywhere. However, heroes nearby the Spy Master can do what they do for half the cost. So this guy, you want to be a roving band of heroes with this dude. Probably one of each hero. so they can do all the nasty things they do. And you probably want those heroes spec'd out to take actions and be effective with them, because those actions are going to be nice and cheap. But, you know, he's great just to have a Spy Master as soon as possible for that 5% extra success chance. But if you don't have heroes, it's not worth it. The Arc Lector is super, super useful. Increases public order by 3 in the local province and reduces corruption by 5 of both types in the local province. This guy you want to spec out to sit in one place. You need this to take over the Vampire Count's territory, and of course Chaos shows up much, you know, by about the mid-game, Chaos starts to show up everywhere. I mean, all over the place. And you're going to have a terrible time dealing with it if you don't have an Arc Lector running around. So the treasures are good everywhere. Castellan Engineer, you want to run around to wherever you're building really expensive stuff. Maybe use as a defensive hero. So that is the offices. Remember, the people who go in here first, once you fill up all the offices, you can start really speccing. But the first treasurer and Castellan Engineer are probably going to be your first Spy Master and Arc Lector, and maybe even your first Reichsmarschall. The Patriarch, Balthazar Gelt, is the only really great, I mean, he's the perfect choice. So don't worry about specializing anyone for that. Okay, so remember, basically it's, do they have to be in one place? And what exactly are you going to use these bonuses for? Because they're actually really good. Alright, the other thing to note is that, well, let's start from the bottom. Diplomacy is a huge deal for the Empire. If you look at this, we've got like Empire secessionists. You want to kill them off quite early. The little early quests will run you through that. Marienburg doesn't like us. Stirland, Talib is all these places that you can deal with. And most of them dislike you. Plus, if you confederate any one of these places, and if you get one to like you, and then you join, you annex them, then everyone else gets a 40-point penalty for 4 turns in diplomacy with you, which will severely degrade your relations, or moderately degrade your relations. Definitely tip it over the edge from friendly to neutral, or neutral to unfriendly, or unfriendly to hateful. And you can make a boatload of money from trading. You also need to be very careful about who's allied with who. You need to pay a lot of attention to diplomacy here. Plan things out carefully. It's really, the best way you can become friends with people is actually to fight their enemies. So figure out who they don't like. Make sure you have military access to who they don't like, so you're not incurring trespassing penalties, and crush them. It's also a smooth trick to offer to go to war with, say, some orcs, or even some of the minor dwarf factions, or chaos or whatever, to secure a nice little treaty. Because the more treaties you have with someone, the higher your the better your relationship's going to be over time. And that's really what you need. You need to nail down all that stuff. Also, be careful of signing like pacts with someone's enemies. What I suggest you do is focus on getting a couple friends, crushing one enemy at a time, and move, just expand. I found you can crush the vampire counts fairly easily, and no one really minds. So if you're looking for someone to kill, also Talib clan, you will get an early quest to fight a battle in here. If you don't have military access, you are going to piss them off when you send the army in. And they're not a bad person to take out early, except that I believe they start off quite friendly. One of the things I found really useful working with the Empire is that you can sort by attitude and figure out who is likely to sign treaties with you or not. Kislev would be great to get treaties, get on their good side if you can. And eventually, all these guys in the north are going to get crushed by chaos. And all these guys in the south are going to get crushed by greenskins, is what I found. The dwarves make really solid allies. There's no diplomatic penalty with dwarves, which is great. The vampire counts have a much more severe problem with that. So, all in all, you need to play a diplomacy game well, focus on building up relationships with important people, crushing anyone who gets too weak and absorbing them into your empire, and prepare for the chaos onslaught with characters that can fight off, with heroes that can fight off corruption. So, you have 4 types of heroes, more than any other faction. And, in general, you kind of need them because the Empire is so big. I'll say battle wizards are generally going to be involved with armies, not running around solo. Their solo abilities are, like most other wizards, kind of like damaging buildings. But their spellcasting abilities in combat are really why you have them for the most part. So you don't need a whole ton. Witch hunters are higher tier. I believe they're your assassins. They're kind of like the banshees. I think they assassinate, they destroy walls, and they reduce corruption. All of your guys reduce corruption, which is super important. Warrior priests are excellent at reducing corruption. They heal your army, which is amazing. Having warrior priests with their casualty replenishment abilities and healing can let you fight a desperately close battle and have your troops be back up and ready for action in 2 turns. Especially useful with your heroes and other kind of single character units, because you just heal so much faster with a warrior priest. Very important, great to take with you or to run around solo fighting corruption. And the Empire captains, I believe, are they're super useful. You can't start with bonus levels for the Empire captain, as far as I can tell, so you need to get them out and training as soon as possible. And they are best used, I believe, to embed in an army and train your units up to high skill levels. Though they do make kind of decent, they're decent combatants. The warrior priests, they get spell-like abilities, but they don't cost mana. They're just abilities you can use, like the rune priests, and they're super useful in combat, but I find that their casualty replenishment actually helps me win more battles. The battle wizard spells are all really potent. Each different type of wizard, of which there are 3, has a kind of unique map-wide effect if you focus on spell casting. And like the the celestial ones, I think, screw up air units. The fire ones cause additional fire damage, cause every enemy unit to take 12% more fire damage, and the other ones do something. I forget. But anyway, so those are the heroes. You will get a lot of them. It's especially easy to get a lot of warrior priests. And Empire captains. We'll look at how to do that. So before we stop talking about the heroes, you can get Empire captains. All you need to do is have a level 3 barracks. It's probably good to have in each province a level 3 barracks anyway, so that you can come up with cheap fodder armies, because I found it there's lots of people who can attack you from lots of different directions. So you really do need to be able to recruit in every province. It's much harder to choke point enemies with the Empire than anywhere else, thanks to your positioning in the middle of the map with wide open territories. So, being able to throw together like 8 spearmen or something and go crush a rebellion is super important. Also, you're going to face a lot of rebellions because you have so much land and corruption is so hard to get rid of. The Shrines of Sigmar, it's great to build these just for the the corruption reduction, but they also let you recruit a warrior priest every time you build one, and you can even recruit an additional warrior priest. No, lies. Can you it's weird that it's got a witch hunter here. I don't. Whatever. And of course, you want the Cathedral of Sigmar at some point because it lets you recruit witch hunters and it raises the ranks of your warrior priest and witch hunters. So always recruit at the Cathedral of Sigmar. There is a better place to build this than not, and that is Middenland. The Middenland capital actually has a unique building that increases further the ranks of all your warrior priests and witch hunters, and also reduces corruption in that region, or in that province, and all bordering ones, or something like that. So it's crazy good to start your priesthood there. And then for the wizards, building an Outdorf conclave is really expensive, but it will net you to be able to have one extra wizard. And then if you upgrade it, you can have another wizard. And of course, hero recruit rank +6 for battle wizards. The Altdorf Colleges of Magic is insane. And make sure you build this wherever, in a place that you're also going to build the artillery, so you can build this Luminarch of Heish, which is a uber deadly. It does 2,000 damage per shot, with a little bit of, it says it has a small splash radius. It does more damage than anything else in the game. Fires once every 20 seconds, has 10 shots, and is apparently highly accurate. Best used against really powerful enemies instead of weak ones, but that is almost enough to down a giant in one shot. And of course, if you're going to build this, then you might as well build this. There's all sorts of stuff like that. You'll want to focus on building up these resource productions like pottery, salt, cinnamon, whatever, because of all the trade treaties you hope to have. Oh, okay, so that is heroes. When it comes to units, your basic guys are fairly solid compared to most other people's basic units. You have a solid amount of armor, like 30 armor on everyone. Shields often, 20 armor even on your ranged units. So you take some, fairly reduced, your guys are tough. They're dependable. They're pretty steady. No obvious weaknesses. I will say the spearmen really suck. Swordsmen are significantly better than the spearmen in most ways. Halberdiers rock and are almost better than the swordsmen in every, almost just better. They do not have shields like the swordsmen do. Your handgunners are solid, but I found that the cheap and plentiful pistoliers are incredibly good early game, and I often had 8 in my armies. Because they can just do so much without getting caught, because they can move while shooting. And your greatswords are generally like your best infantry. They are good at everything. They have 100 armor, so like 3 times the armor. And unlike a lot of other greatsword infantry, they're pretty much on par with any of your infantry when it comes to melee attack and defense. So why not? Halberdiers having notably more defense, but still, the greatswords are sick and they have a solid charge bonus. They do extra damage to small troops, which is really good, and they have significant armor piercing damage, which otherwise you have to get from your ranged units. For your for your cavalry, the pistoliers are excellent with fairly high missile damage. Very fast, and with skirmish on and fire whilst moving, they are very deadly. They also can be vanguard deployed. Pretty sweet. Plus, when you need to, they can charge in and screw up other ranged units, especially goblin archers. You can go ahead and crash into them, but try not to sit around, as they will get wrecked. Then there are Outriders. They're basically a straight up upgrade, more armor piercing. The Outriders with grenade launchers, lots of missile damage, can't attack air units anymore. They are a lot of fun. Empire Knights are solid shock cavalry. They have 100 armor. They're fairly skilled in melee attack and defense, and a large charge bonus. So they're really good against most things. They do not have much armor-piercing damage, but hey. The Reichsguard is going to be like an alternative to those guys. The Reichsguards, armored and shielded, anti-infantry, they are just better Empire Knights. They just have more of everything. They're not quite as good as the Demigryph Knights, but the Demigryph Knights are have a size of 6, whereas the Reichsguard is a size of 15. So it's it's your call. Plus, the Reichsguard are a bit cheaper, and of course you can get extra bonus levels for your Reichsguard. Also, one of the places, I think it's Talib clan, has a Reichsguard specialty building. Oh no, it's actually an Empire Knight specialty building. But the Reichsguard are solid. And then the Demigryph Knights and the Demigryph Knights with halberds are basically your badass, super strong, like low size, high health units. They're heavily armored, they're very fast, they have solid melee attack and defense, and their damage is sick, plus their charge bonus. And they cause fear, so they're great for ramming into the back of lines of infantry who are about to crumble and taking the whole thing out. They are very tough because there's only 6 of them sharing all this health. And, you know, the halberds are your monster hunters, the knights are your general shock cavalry. With your artillery, and mortar is easy and cheap to get. You should acquire some of these pretty early because they're great for dropping bombs on people from a distance. The Hellstorm rocket battery has excellent range, good missile damage. It fires a volley of 3 shots, so it does tend to be best used against clumped up units, but it's pretty sick because it does solid damage. Remember, and this is 250 damage over 10 seconds, and it fires every 14 point. Yeah, you can do the math if you feel like it. The Great Cannon fires only a single missile. It's kind of the armor-piercing version of the Hellstorm battery. Or you would take it for armor-piercing. The ranges are the same. That is that. The Hellblaster volley gun is it's less than half the range of the 2 previous weapons we've talked about, but it does shoot 6 missiles with a significant amount, looks like all armor piercing damage. So this is just really good against anything at a still pretty far range. Like 200 is no short range weapon. It's just not really, it's not as much a siege unit so much as an army breaker, but a nice solid unit. And then the steam tank, super long range. It actually has a decent melee attack as well as a really deadly ranged attack. And it does cause terror in anyone it attacks in melee for a couple seconds. Also causes fear, is itself unbreakable, highly armored, and not quite twice as fast as most infantry. So its melee attack is great, its melee defense sucks, but if you're in the middle of a bunch of units that do not deal armor-piercing damage, it will last forever. And it is really tough, being only a size 1 unit, having all this health for itself. Pretty awesome thing. Useful almost all the time. And the Luminarch of Heish, we've talked about this. It has good range, but not as much as some artillery. It does incredibly horrific damage. And it looks like it can reduce the power recharge rate of nearby enemies. I don't see how useful that could really be. And nearby allies gain 12% physical resistance. Otherwise, it's kind of a weak artillery unit, very expensive, a low number of shots. Make sure you're controlling what it's shooting at. Alright, so those are the Empire units, a nice broad range. Your Witch Hunter here is your assassin, so you do want to build up to them pretty quickly. And they're also your scout and guard, so you want a couple of them. If you look at how you're going to distribute your buildings, how do you build your infrastructure? It's actually pretty flexible for these guys. because look at what you need to build in a capital versus what can be built in local regions. Remember that if something requires a blacksmith, that blacksmith or armory can be built anywhere in the province, and it'll count for that requirement. So you can build a barracks. You can build all the way up to the top tier barracks in a minor settlement. Same goes for the Reichsfort. So never build these in your capital. Always build them in a minor settlement unless you are struggling to survive or don't control the whole province. Of course, your basic growth, your basic cash income can all be built up to max in minor settlements. Wherever you can, build whatever special buildings are available, except for maybe there is a building for woods. Any province that produces woods will let you have better crossbowmen and spearmen, and that's a little lame. It gives them extra XP and makes them cheaper. They're good for those cheap armies that you kind of use to control rebellions on the characters that aren't actually main battle force, but otherwise, So what do you need to build in your capital? So your capital, you need to build your stables type buildings, and you need to build your forges type buildings for your artillery. So horses and artillery, and then if you look at what those require, the artillery actually goes well with the horsemen, so you can get these outriders. And you need the blacksmith and the armory to get knights and demigriff knights, which is totally fine because you also need the armory to build a steam tank. So the stables, the forge, and the smithy all go together really perfectly, and that's what I suggest you build in Altdorf to begin with. You're going to want to destroy the training field sometime soon, but make sure to just dump a couple infantry, maybe 6 more infantry on Franz or whoever your legendary lord is before you destroy it and replace it with stables. There is... Oh, okay. Let's keep going. You're going to want to build a shrine in a lot of places, maybe even some minor settlements for that chaos, that corruption reduction, and the ability to recruit more warrior priests. And when you have loads of cash, if you ever do, if you want more witch hunters, which you probably do, then you're going to want to build up to this. Plus, the reduction in corruption really is not bad. So maybe thinking that you'll try and have a cathedral in most provinces by the end of the game is a good plan. You want to sneak in some conclave of battle wizards in every province where you have room, so you can have more battle wizards. But remember, you do kind of max out. You can totally run out of space for battle wizards because they're not quite as good as, or they're not quite as useful in mass. They do, however, let you get cheaper buildings with only a single skill point. You can get a 20% discount on buildings. So that first battle wizard that you get, who's always going to be lower level than your friends if you wait for Balthazar Gelt and this bonus here, I suggest speccing him to help construct stuff and then keeping him moving inside your territory. You will need to build tap rooms for public order, and you really kind of have to keep them around because chaos corruption is a big problem. Often, I found all sorts of corruption problems, and yeah. You need 1 or 2 of these in every province. They make decent placeholders in your capitals if you don't have anything else to build there. And the port, you really want to push towards the level 2 port. Ports are only available in capitals, I think. Maybe not. But Marienburg has a couple ports. But you really want to push. You see this little symbol here means that it unlocks technologies. The Imperial Harbor unlocks your key economic technologies that you want to go for as soon as possible. Alright, so that is everything here. But let's take a look. Note that Grundberg has pastures, and pastures actually allow for the production of a building that you can't see here that makes all your cavalry cheaper and higher level when you recruit them. So go straight for Grunberg. It's another good reason to focus on stables and forges in Reichland province, because anywhere with pastures is not only going to have excellent growth thanks to the pastures unique chain, but also there'll be a special building you can build that increases, it makes cavalry just better. So I suggest replacing this bad boy on turn 3 or 4 after you've recruited a good number of swordsmen. Swordsmen significantly more effective than spearmen in almost every way. And spearmen are just cheap. That's their main benefit. Their anti-large damage is okay, but it's not enough to overcome most large things' armor, so wah wah. Alright, let's see. Faction summary. Treasury, you can get a ton of money from trade goods, especially with lots of trade things. Technology. Okay, so each building that unlocks technology unlocks 3 different techs. They range from about 6 turns to research to 14 over here for the higher level ones. And they're all quite good. Like I said, the Imperial Harbor is really important for fishing fleets, plus 10 growth. Mercantile fleets, you can wait till this is effective, but plus 5% trade agreement tariffs, that's just money, and plus 5% additional tradable resources. Only useful if you have trade goods, but it can be a whole lot of money. And then siege charts, income from ports plus 10%. Most useful if you've taken Marienburg, as that is where all your ports are. Look for cities on big rivers and you're going to be golden. Other notable ones, the rally field is pretty darn good. Plus 2 experience for Empire infantry units. Remember that that's 2 leadership, 2 attack, and 2 defense. That's what levels are. Plus 5 leadership, plus 5 speed. You can see this is all really solid. 10% charge bonus for all cavalry units and 5% more speed. Upkeep reduction for knights and Reichsguards. Yeah, all of these are really quite good. Of special note, the Temple of Sigmar. Faction-wide reduction in vampire and chaos corruption. Really good by mid-game. Public Order plus 2, really good anytime in the game, especially early. And Ecclesial Writ. Hero actions cost 20% less for all characters, so faction-wide hero action cost reduction. That's great because you have a ton of heroes to recruit of different types and just pure numbers. Plus 2 extra levels for Warrior Priest and Witch Hunters. Really good, especially to get before your first Witch Hunter. Especially if you really take advantage of Middenheim's special building. So I've noticed that, yeah, it seems like every other province in the Empire comes with a special building. Pay careful attention to them. There's not one here. I mean, there's the ports. But then, yeah, Talibheim has its... You just look for a strategic location and know that you can probably build a special, like, unit-focused building here. Probably it also reduces corruption and stuff. I believe Talibheim's is for Empire Knights. Middenheim's, once again, is for Warrior Priests and Witch Hunters. And there's one up here that does something good. I was pleased to have it. Yeah, so, alright, so that is the basics. Your objectives, of course, are to consolidate the whole empire, either through vassals, military allies, or direct ownership. I suggest probably direct ownership for the most part. Though leaving buffers between you and Chaos and you and the Orcs is not a bad idea. You have to reclaim Sylvania, ownership or through vassals and military allies. Sylvania, that's tough, like I said, vampire corruption, but it's a fine place to use your priests who specialize in corruption reduction. You do not have to destroy the vampires in the short form of the campaign, and that's the big major difference. Destroy the vampires or don't is seems to be the difference between the long and the short campaign. Chaos Wastes, Archaon, are a pain in the ass. and you need to whip both of them. Finally,
by the comet.
Note that on your first turn,
Ulrich's will.
You can go straight for Grunberg on your second turn if you do things right. Really try and kill this guy. I suggest not auto-resolving so that you can guarantee his death. Note that you start with these Reichsguard and they are super good against everything. They have such high armor that they're pretty much immune to Spearman's extra damage. So you can charge them in all up on the place. Unit replenishment is a problem at the beginning.
Step to it.
And on this first turn, you want to be careful to step back so that you can recruit, because you can't recruit in enemy territory.
Pick up the pace.
But you can recruit at the end of your turn if you didn't force march. And that's actually really, really useful at first.
As is my right by
like I said, swordsmen pretty much whip spearmen and everything. You can just look at their upkeep and know. But spearmen are good for filling up armies and, you know, auto-resolving and just kind of peacekeeping forces because they're nice and cheap. But my suggestion is definitely check out your diplomatic options right off the bat. I suggest high attitude first if possible.
You tread upon Bretonnian land. I'll have...
And let's see, Bretonnia, see, they're at war with...
I am King Leoncoeur.
So we're almost there, right?
Do you come to Bretonnia as friend or enemy?
Oh, sadly, have no one to declare war mutual with. But yeah, go for Grunberg. Let's show you. I also suggest speccing out your legendary lords basically for combat, because even if they die by getting overwhelmed, they will come back, which is super important. Your other guys can actually die for reals. So, also Karl is especially good with melee attack, as he gets double the normal amount per skill point from that skill, and he can try again later. So you can actually get plus 36 weapon melee skill. I don't think the armor is really necessary for him. I found Scarred Veteran to always be very, very good on anyone who fights a lot. Deathclaw is pretty sweet because it flies and gives you a pretty serious charge that you can land from anywhere. Of course, extra damage. Deadly Onslaught, Leader of Men is nice. 25% more aura is good. Route Marcher is great on everyone because you have so much land to cover. And you get 2 unique weapons. You can go straight for whichever one you want. You will get access to the Reikland Runefang first. I found it really hard to actually finish the quest. Gal Moraz, I suspect, is just a bit more... it comes with Public Order. I guess they both... Yeah, it's up to you. Gal Moraz is a little more single-targety. Reikland Runefang's a little more splash damagey. Otherwise, they're almost the same. And then the Silver Seal is totally sick, and you should get it ASAP. But either one of these is fine. You can totally skip one if you feel like it. Balthazar, I suggest going into... He starts off with a bombardment spell, and he has a personal ability that lets him, once per battle, overcast a spell or cast it at level 2 without any chance of miscasting, which is super, super boss and a great reason to specialize him in deadly spell casting. Alright, so I went on much longer than many of the other ones I've done, partly because it took me a while to figure out what I was missing. I think you need to stay organized in this game. You probably want 3 to 4 armies, maybe 2 elite armies, and 2 armies that are kind of peacekeepers. And you want a lot of heroes, especially priests, a lot focused in corruption reduction, and you just need to move them all over the Empire to keep it safe, especially if you're going to try and control everything yourself. And know that the orcs are going to hit you from beneath, the chaos are going to hit you from above. Try and be friends with the dwarves, as you don't need to fight anyone else. You have to crush the vampires. and to take advantage of basically everything you have. Cheap artillery, the offices, lots of specialized heroes that you can run around, and to continuously just build up that income. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope this was informative. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe. And until next time, my friends, good luck. And remember to crush the heretic.